Hello, everyone, and welcome to the GMologist Presents Happy New Year. I hope you've had a great couple of weeks for the new year. I've been a little delayed in getting my first podcast out for the year, but it's all good. I just wanted to get some good content out. But today I do have content. I have a couple calls, a call from Joe Richter of Hindsightless and Rich, I believe from Cockatrice Nuggets, but he just said, I'm Rich. So anyway, I will get on with the show with those calls, or start the show with those calls, and then I'll talk about, the title of this podcast, New Year, New Games. I got a couple games that we're going to start up and let you know what games I played in this first 2 weeks of the new year. So sit tight and let's hear what Joe has to say, and I'll be right back.
Hey, yo, Carl. I hope you and Amy had a really nice Christmas. I just got finished listening to your year end wrap up, and I was calling about Bloodlords, man. I really would be curious to hear you talk more about it. Like what you guys didn't like, what you did like. One of my favorite Pathfinder YouTuber dudes is this guy called the Myth Keeper, and he does really, really great deep dives onto different areas of Galarian. He just recently wrapped up like his retelling of his War for the Crown campaign, and he just started doing a recap of his Bloodlords campaign that he just started running for his table. I don't know if the Bloodlord ones are public yet. I'm on his Patreon, so he releases them early, but they should be starting soon. And from what I've seen so far, he's added like a ton of stuff to the start of that campaign. Because I don't think he was that into the start of that campaign. So yeah, man, I'd really be curious to hear you talk more about Bloodlords. Anyway, dude, take it easy. Peace out.
Thank you for the message, Joe. I will link the Myth Keeper in the show notes, or that particular Bloodlords episode, at least 1.1, and the rest of you can follow that. We don't record ours, it's for my home group, so have at it. So I did talk to my home group about Bloodlords, and I don't know, I got sort of mixed reviews, and I got to decipher my notes because I took notes and tell you what they kind of said. All right, so out of kind of the group decision, and I kind of pulled them, their favorite of the three books that we've done so far was the first one, and I think because of the difference in the character creation, it was a great intro to the world, and they really liked the encounters in there, especially like the encounter within the bank. There was a bank heist or bank infiltration that they had to do, and they did like the end. For the end encounter, it had multiple way access points in. Characters split up. They really enjoyed how that encounter worked, and they really enjoyed the fight at the end with the main enemy from that first book. So they really liked the first book a lot. And then what was I going to say? I was okay with the first book. I did like the way it started. I liked the encounters. I feel like there were some redundant encounters, and actually the players found out information pretty quickly. They skipped a few of the encounters you were supposed to go to because they kind of took the clues that they had already obtained and deciphered where they were supposed to go. So that had them go to the bank a little early, but I think that was more exciting that way. And they skipped some slog in the undercroft of Grey Dirge, the city that they were in. They really enjoyed the interplay also with their patron. I guess I really have a lot of fun with eccentric and unique NPCs. If you listen to the AD&D 1E game, Cousin Tharvar is a big hit with the players because he's almost like comic relief. Um, I think if you listen to past shows, you recall Nogrob, a favorite of Spike Pit in my uh, Broken Lands campaign. So I guess some of the NPCs that have been introduced into Bloodlords, they've really enjoyed, and I've got to play them quite well. So the second book they really enjoyed because it was a gazetteer of Geb, and it went from point to point. The encounters were with just the right amount of time. One player really liked the variety of the different encounters. There was the initial one was in a sort of witch house that was kind of alive. There was one that they went to a sea town. There was one they went to a mining town. And then finally, their favorite antics happened at a college town, and it actually reminded them all the role-playing aspects and the quick and dirty fights reminded them a lot of Warhammer fantasy role-playing, which I think is this group's kind of favorite game in any case. And that second book, and the antics that happened in the college town was the closest any player has come to a permanent death. He partied with a vampire and almost died because of it. So I think they really enjoyed that. It wasn't necessarily combat. There was crazy stuff and role-playing encounters, as well as combats that spice things up here and there. I really enjoyed the mining town. It was run as an infiltration procedure, and it really, what that kind of did is what I like is it made it so that you didn't have to go through a lot of fights and bog down the campaign play. It was kind of more of a skill challenge, if you forgive the fourth edition D&D parlance, but it's kind of a series of skills and challenges that you had to do to find out information to where you're supposed to go and confront the boss encounter in that particular section at the mining town. So I really liked the design of that, and it was a really fun fight. And I think that's what Pathfinder 2 does really well, is it kind of do things, and it leads up to one good fight. And I think that's how it shines. I think they really liked the least of all of the third book in the series. And yeah, I probably should tell you what the names of these books are, probably for those who aren't in the know. I know you could look them up, however. Okay, so the first adventure, when I say adventure one, is called Zombie Feast, and the second adventure is called Grave Claw. The third adventure is called Field of Maidens. And they, like I was saying, they really were not impressed or enjoyed the third Bloodlords, Field of Maidens. I didn't like it. I felt it was sort of a cat and mouse that was unnecessary, and I think they could have had the player characters. There could have been another way for the player characters. I think if I would choose again for the player characters to find out the information they found at the end of this, instead of chasing an enemy that they had already defeated and defeating them again, and that fight was much easier. There were more interesting encounters within the context of that adventure, and I almost feel like they wanted to make an adventure that the design consideration was like, I want you to use a Field of Maidens, which is this the field of petrified warriors that Geb in a battle petrified like a mass of them long ago from the neighboring nation that had invaded Geb. So and that was a cool place, and I think there's some neat encounters, and to me the final boss was from the Field of Maidens, and that was a good encounter, but it was an encounter that I kind of concocted based on what the character activities were. And it was during this particular adventure path that one player said, well, I forgot that we were actually doing Bloodlords. It was so un-Bloodlord-like. There was no world building that they had done in Zombie Feast or Graveclaw, which, like I said, was a gazetteer almost of the whole country of Geb. Went to 4 different places. And 2 characters actually respect at the beginning or during the third book. One at the beginning transferred to... Oh, no. They did it at the same time. It was midway through the third book. One player just got tired of playing a magic user in Pathfinder 2. He was not having fun, so he respec to a zombie barbarian. Actually, formerly, in life, he was an orc, and then now as a zombie barbarian. He was actually rewarded with a 2-handed sword during the course of the adventure from an adversary that worked out. And then because they lost a spellcaster, the character who was playing the not investigator, not interrogator, inquisitor, respect to a cleric of Urgathoa, the goddess of death, the pallid one. So I don't know. It caused some substantial changes in the game. So as of note, Zombie Feast is for levels 1 to 3. 4 to 7 was Graveclaw, which I think is kind of the sweet spot for Pathfinder. 8 to 10 is another character levels 11. If you continue, and I'd like to continue because I told them, and I've read through already the next book, Fool's Hunger, which is for levels 11 to 15, is that it is more akin to the first adventure, where it's city based. You do things in a city. They're small dungeons, and basically you have some investigation and role playing, which I think these player characters enjoy, and then followed, or which sort of each section is highlighted or ends in like a really good encounter, or a potential martial encounter. So it'd be like a good TV show where you investigate, lead up to what you're supposed to find, and then you have a big fight at the end of that episode with someone who has the information, or who has the information you're looking for to get to the next section, or is sort of the end game for that set of information. So we'll see. We'll see if they like it. I think another thing that I remember in the third adventure is that the beginning, and I should have realized this has happened before with my characters, that if you give them an ultimatum, they're going to do like the opposite, really. So in the beginning of this adventure, this Death Knight comes. I think they call it Grave Knight in Pathfinder, but he's a representative of the king, and he's a king's chief investigator or something, and he comes to their manor, and he says, "You have to do this or else," and that just rubbed the players the wrong way, and they were very snarky to him. They're like, hey man, why don't you wipe your feet when you come into our house? You got dirt all over our really nice expensive rug. And he didn't appreciate that, so I think I had him like step out of the house and say say something snarky back, which in the end was kind of some role playing, but totally that character I would say was unnecessary. That NPC was unnecessary. They could have sent him as a messenger and said, "Hey, this is what the king would like you to do." Maybe even through his the patron who is a blood lord. So. And the character didn't do anything during the course of the adventure. Maybe it was like, oh, just in case the player characters get into trouble, he's like a dude who can save them. But I really don't like that kind of like Elminster type NPC design. And the guy did nothing in the adventure except follow them around and go, oh, you guys take care of that. You guys take care of that. Unnecessary. They could have introduced this character in a better way. I thought that, going back to number 2, there are some really cool NPCs that were introduced that the players were allowed to interact with. 2 vampires in there. One, I think, in the sea town, and I believe, and one in the college town, that really were dynamic and interesting and were important to the PC's development and the development of the plot in the adventure. So yeah, I think 3 was not quite a dud, because I would say like the last adversary, not the adversary they were chasing, that kind of they killed in episode 2 and had to kill again or destroy again. But the one that kind of betrayed them in a way, but they were kind of expecting it. They didn't trust this particular NPC, but that was a really good fight. And then they also had a really neat fight in the Field of Maidens against a war camp, and they had because of the nature of the adventure path, like you don't necessarily have to fight all the bad stuff, and they actually allied with a ghoul mage and his cadre of feral type ghouls, and got them to help them with the encounter. So I think that was a cool aspect. There's a little bit of diplomacy there when they actually got to the Field of Maiden. So that was cool, and maybe that should have been the adventure and not the rest of the stuff. Like the clues lead to the Field of Maidens, and you hope they had a good set of adventures and encounters, and really getting rid of that and particularly that NPC, but maybe introducing him, but not having him sort of hang around and be all mopey and annoying. Really, I guess I played him annoying, but I guess they don't like him, and that was a good thing because I played him annoying enough. So I guess there you go, Joe. My rundown so far of Bloodlords, and I would like to get back into it, but I will see what the players want to do. The home group right now, we're playing through a couple of Star Wars adventures for Force and Destiny, which is where they're Force users, and the first part of my campaign is for them to discover about and find kyber crystals so they can make lightsabers. So they become Jedi Knights, and then I think it will get really fun in that particular mini campaign that we're running. And then we've started a new game, but I will get to that in another section. Thanks so much for your call, Joe, and I'll talk to you soon.
Finished your 2025 wrap-up episode. Some good stuff in there, and you mentioned Worlds Without Number and Stars Without Number. I love both of these things. I'm kind of a Kevin Crawford mega fan anyway. The world building in both of these books is amazing. The tools he gives you are, of course, great and usable in any kind of system that is similarly adjacent to either his sci-fi or his science fantasy world. But Worlds Without Number, man, the setting there is crazy and amazing. I would definitely suggest reading through that if you haven't already. Talk to you later.
Thank you so much. That was Rich, I believe, from the old Caucasus Nuggets podcast. I'm not sure. Let me know. But thank you so much for that message. And, I hadn't taken a look at it. I mean, I got like the bundles of holding that they had recently for Worlds, and I've had Stars for a little bit. And yeah, I took a look at it, and I agree that Atlas of the Latter Earth is pretty cool looking. And what's neat is that you can, use some of the areas that he's created, use those as a template, create your own kingdoms, add your own kingdoms into the Atlas somewhere, or do your own thing. And it's really nice and pretty cool. And I probably, if I did run a Worlds Without Number game, I probably would use the Atlas of Latter Earth, and then learn his structure and learn how he constructs things. There's a lot of world building ideas and a way to build like the world, then the region, then the kingdom, which I think is a really nice. Stars Without Number is definitely more of a toolbox, I think, or maybe I haven't. At least the kind of CRB, the core rulebook. It seems that like with Worlds Without Number, there is like an implied setting, which is the Atlas of Latter Earth. But you can do your own thing, of course. Stars Without Number, it seems you create your kind of region of space that you're adventuring in. At least what it looked like to me. So I definitely want to dive into it more and take a turn at running some Worlds Without Number. I did run I have somewhere on my Roll20, one of the first games I created was a game I wanted to run a Dust mini campaign, and I ran it a couple times for an online mini-con, and I thought it was really fun. Never got to finish the adventure, and I wouldn't mind diving back into it. I know they're redoing Dust. I forgot what they're calling it, the new one. In any case, yeah, Stars Without Number, Worlds Without Number, Kevin Crawford stuff. I really want to dive more into like Drive for 2, because I know like in the bundle that I got in the bonus, I think it's the bonus collection. In the bonus collection of Worlds Without Number, I got the Diocese of Montfroid, which is in one of the places in Atlas of Latter-day Earth, one of the countries. So I wonder if they have more of them, and that would be kind of nice. They probably have some regions or things created for Stars Without Number as well. In the bonus and starter collection, they have the bonus collection. They have Dead Names, Polychrome, Skyward Steel, Sons of Gold, and Starvation Cheap. And then the starter collection were the screen and the core rulebook and 16 stars. I guess that's 16 planets that you can play with, or star system you can play with. Anyway, thanks for the call, Rich, and we'll talk to you all soon. All right, I promised to talk about the new year and new games. I do have to start out with saying that the first game I played this year was on January 1st, New Year's Day, and I got to run our ongoing Star Wars campaign. We're using Force and Destiny, which is the Edge Studios. Formerly, it was created by Fantasy Flights, the Edge Studios Star Wars game where the player characters are Force users. We have a really cool crew, actually, and we just finished an episode or a session where the player characters finally got to find their Rubat crystals, which are a form of kyber crystal, to make their lightsabers. So we have Xerxes, who's an Arcanian, and he is a warrior, steel hand warrior. His weaknesses, and they had to go through a trial, are recklessness and naivety, and I highlighted that by having him overwhelmed by a mob of creatures, and he found a teal Rubat crystal. Next we have Jab, who is a Salonian. His merciless is his weakness. He is a seeker. He's going to be an Atari striker, and he found his merciless trial was to forgive an injured clone trooper who was in the group that had killed his master when he was a young Padawan, and his color crystal was orange. And then we have Merrick, whose weakness is hatred, and he had to overcome the hatred of the person who burned his village and his family. And he's going to become a counselor and aesthetic, and his Rubat crystal was silver chrome in color. Interestingly, we have Tash, Dathomir, who's obsessed and had to fight through a wall of ice and tunnels of ice to overcome her obsession. She's a mystic and wants to become a Night Sister Magus, and her Rubat crystal was red, which should be interesting. Also, ironically, though Merrick and Tash, their powers are sort of dark side related, they're both now, based on their actions during the early few sessions we've done, their actions have made at least Tash a Paragon light force user, right? So their conflict has not been a lot, and they're not sliding into the dark side, which would be interesting. And finally, we have Dula, who is a Kaldorian, and he is a Sentinel Shadow, and his Rubat crystal, after he survived a set of coordination checks as he recklessly tried to find the cave full of crystals. He actually did amazing, even rolling against a daunting challenge for his coordination. He found a yellow Rubat crystal. So I'm pretty excited about it. We played on the first, and I think on the first they actually found a wreck of an old ship, which was also a Jedi school. They found a holocron crystal, which led them to where they could find these kyber crystals. So it's a kind of a two-part adventure series where first they find the holocron crystal and learn about what it is to be a Jedi. Since only really one of them they know that they're Force users, and they know a little bit about. They don't know about their powers. They just know they have them, except for Jav, who obviously was a Padawan. So that was pretty interesting. It's been a cool campaign, and actually they want to continue. I was only planning to do sort of this short series, where they were able to make their lightsabers, but now they want to continue. And what's interesting is, like, I've been having this Inquisitor chase them, sixth brother, who not a lot is written about other than his arm was cut off in training by Darth Vader. He's supposed to be kind of a bully and cool. Anyway, it should be interesting if they ever confront him, because so far they've run. It's been really fun role play, and really like how the players dove into the challenges that they had to overcome. So that's pretty cool. On Friday the 2nd, we actually played again our Masks campaign. I think that was released today as I finish this podcast on our YouTube channel, and it's called the Pit of Death, where they finish the events in the Juju house. And I think we have at least one more session in Rome, and maybe I think they're going to Egyptus. I think that's the next stop, Egyptus, and further. I don't know if they'll hit Britannia or not. I don't know if it's actually necessary. I think these players are kind of mission focused, and I think a lot of clues lead to more to Egyptus and beyond, down the Nile. Or is it up the Nile? Up the Nile, to their destiny. So I found a lot of cool artifacts, including a Greek Caparian device. I can't remember. It's basically the Greek calculator type of thing that is counting down something. So that should be interesting. I have been able to run a session or two of Red Star Lone Star. So those are coming up. I'm pretty excited. A session of Hyperborea. We got back into our Traveler Order of the March, and I really want to get with those player characters. It's been 2 years since we started our Traveler game, so that should be pretty cool. We have our next session on Monday, is coming Monday. So we haven't gotten back into Legend of the Sky Raiders. That's another Traveler game that I'm running. We haven't gotten back to that one yet. And I think we have played, I feel like we played one session of the One Ring, where the players finally, they had a battle against orcs under the hollies in front of the doors of Durin, and traveled into Moria, which was kind of neat. And we played a session of AD&D. So we finally got back to and entered Slave Pits of the Undercity through a non-traditional way, which I thought was kind of clever and cool of the players to do. So new games, though. So I've had another meeting with the home group in between the Star Wars sessions, and we're starting a new game. And that game is going to be Imperium Maledictum. It uses a very similar rules set to Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4th edition, except it is set in the 40K universe, also a Games Workshop property. And it was pretty cool. I'm excited about that too. As I reach for my notes about it, we have a same home group of players, 5 players. Jacqueline, Jacques Icarus, from a hive world, grew up in the Administratum, and their Inquisitor, which I rolled up their Inquisitor, which I think was part of the fun of this game, is I got to roll up their Inquisitor, and I lost where I was going. So we'll pause this for a second. Okay, I found what I was looking for, and I had created an Inquisitor. His name is Harkos, or Harlow Zarkov. He has calculating eyes, and he is an Inquisitor in the Ordo Hereticus. So they also have a Sanctum Obscurus, so a safe house when they operate. As part of this, the patron demands discretion. He is motivated by information, and he can be wrathful, which is very interesting. So interestingly, the man Harkos, those of who I think a couple of the cadre have seen him, he's bareheaded, but his features are unremarkable. Interestingly, they may have learned or heard that he has some sort of connection or relationship with the Black Ships, and he has always ended his messages with the motto or order, duty prevails. So the player characters, like I said, there was Jacqueline or Jacques Icarus, and the Inquisitor, part of the process, is after the player characters roll, I look at their abilities and stats, and I decide a role for them. And I choose the role, and if they decide on that role, then they get extra experience points to start their character. All the players went with the role that I chose for them. So Explicator, which is kind of a scribe, face almost, or information gatherer in the group. Another player is Protos Venetus 998/56C. He is born on a Forge world. He's Adeptus Mechanicus, and I chose to be an engine seer for him. There was another possibility, but because of the discretion of that Harkos Zarkov calls for, I decided against one type of role than another. For Echo X, he is actually a mutant, and he was born in a strange anomaly, raised by the Hereticus, and Harkos has groomed him, chosen him to be a warrior, which fits nicely. So he's the muscle of the group. Next, we have Doc, who was born on was bat grown actually, is a blank almost, no background, and is perfect for the cadre's assassin. And then finally, we have Shin Savanto, who was born on a relic world, but was raised by a criminal organization, and he is their seeker, so the face of the group in this cadre. So pretty excited to play Imperium Maledictum. I probably will run through the starter set adventure just to understand how the game goes and the idea of how an adventure flows, and then do my own thing with this group in the Imperium Maledictum world, or group, or campaign. So the other game I'm excited to start is not going to be run by me. It's going to be run by Arlen Walker of Live from Pelham's Wasteland. And we got together recently and created Burning Wheel characters, but we're not playing in sort of traditional Burning Wheel campaign. It's called The Blossoms Are Falling, so it's set in and around the Genpei War of 12th century Japan. I'm pretty excited about it. We have a fun group of players. This probably will not be online, but I hope to get Arlen and some of the other players on to discuss Burning Wheel and the campaign. I have created a monk. We're all related. The characters are all related. We're part of this clan that has some land on the road between the rival factions, and we're trying to remain neutral. And my character is going to be a monk. His name is Akayama, but his family name is Tetsu, or Tetsuo, depending on how we choose to reveal our name, Tetsuo Saburo-san. And one of the players, the arcane alienist, came up with a small poem, Two Households, both alike in dignity and ancient Nippon, where we lay our scene from ancient grudge, break to new mutiny, where civil blood makes civil hands unclean. So pretty neat. My wife Amy's playing, and we have another player as well, which would be really cool. You might know him as the nerd of RPG Variety Cast. So yes, he is our cousin. I am the youngest brother in the household. Amy's character is our older sister, who is trained by our father, who is trying to retire from his, land ownership, daimyoship, proto-daimyoship, and pass it on to BJ's character. I was sent to the monastery. But the monasteries have a huge role in the Genpei War as they choose sides of different factions. So it should be really fun. And I'm looking forward to it. Excited to play Burning Wheel. Been wanting to for a long time. And that's it. It's the new games. I'm pretty excited about the new year and what it has to offer. I might add some other games. I've been excited about some recent unboxings that I've had. We'll continue all our old games and go in new directions. Already in the new year, for Hyperborea, you finally made it into the caverns of Thracia by hook or crook, or failed discovery of a trap. It's all good. So thanks so much for listening. This has been the Geomologist Presents. Hey, you can contact me like we had Joe Richter and Rich do. Leave a message and I'll respond. And you'll be somewhat famous or infamous depending on your perspective. You can reach me at geomologist@gmail.com or on the Discord and leave me a message there, a voice message or a typed message. And you can also leave a SpeakPipe message as Rich did through my SpeakPipe account, which is linked into the show notes. I will link some other things. And I hope you've enjoyed it. Good night and a good rolling. Oh, I forgot the other stuff. My wife Amy does the cover clip art. TJ does the cool intro and outro music. And that's it. All right, bye.